Hey everyone, and welcome to the second narrated RGV Flyover report. I'm Thomas. Some of you may recognize my voice from the RGV Aerophotography Starbase weekly live stream. In this week's episode, we'll review the flyover photos taken on Tuesday, May 16th. The video includes highlights, comparisons, and a map this week. First, we'll start this week's episode at the Masseys test site, formerly Masseys Gun Shop and Range, purchased by SpaceX in 2021 and turned into a test facility. It's located here along Highway 4 and the Rio Grande, or about 4 miles southwest of the build site. That's about 6.5 kilometers for our metric friends. Comparing the flyover from the 11th, there are quite a few changes to notice. Here's the first photo of Masseys taken on May 11th. And here's the second photo of Masseys taken on May 16th. The first thing we spot out of the ordinary is B6.1, tipped over. This test article was blown up in a Starship Flight Termination Systems Test, or FTS test for short. Courtesy of Rocket Ranch, the video shows this test occurring on May the 15th at 4:19 CST. The test article was filled with water and was assumed to be brought up to flight pressures of about 6 bar, or about 6 times atmospheric pressure. There appeared to be a linear shaped charge of 3 to 6 feet, or nearly 1 to 2 meters in height, appearing to explode in a line downwards, possibly indicating that detonation cord was used. The reasoning for that deduction follows April 20th maiden flight of Starship Booster 7 and Ship 24, which were destroyed about 40 seconds after its FTS systems blew gaping holes in the vehicle's tanks. This delayed explosion after FTS, and what Elon said about needing a, quote, longer detonation cord, and this newest test go along with indicating that SpaceX just tested out this new longer detonation cord for FAA recertification, followed by a torrent of water surging forth, smashing past the reinforced square HESCO barriers and toppling over a newly installed control box. We are excited to hear what Elon will say about this test following his next Twitter Spaces call this week. Moving down to a new pad adjacent to the 3 current liquid nitrogen tanks, lays rebar matting with some observed going vertically, showing 4 embeds for holding one side of 3 tanks. This is the same configuration used on the cryo tanks just to the left. This quartet pad support will likely be one of 2 reinforced concrete pads for the 3 new liquid nitrogen tanks. They may use the current 3 tanks staged here at the top of the image, as they are still waiting a new home. Just above the pad are new pipe racks that have been recently installed, with insulated piping being prepped for installation. Moving on to Ship Test Article 26.1 and the Camp Crusher, workers can be seen both weeks going inside to assess or make changes to the test article for future testing. And as expected, viewed on the 18th, 26.1 was observed being crowd tested once again at 8 p.m. CDT with the puck shucker underneath. Nose Cone 29, sitting here in the structural test stand, which is lovingly referred to as the Nose Cone Jail, has no noticeable changes or work being done to it. It is assumed that it will soon be moved out to be scrapped after its destructive test that was completed around April 27th. Here is the nearly completed Starship Puckshucker test station located on Pad C2. This test station will take over for Test Stand A at the launch site. It uses hydraulic ramps to push up and simulate the flight loads of the ship's thrust puck while the station holds down the ship test article. Moving over, back on the 16th, Ship 25 was staged on a brand new concrete pad with 2 self-propelled modular transporters, or SPMTs for short. It was moved from its cryo station located here at Pad C late night after the flyover on the 16th. It attempted to head back towards the build site. On the 17th, SpaceX announced on Twitter, Ship 25 moved to a suborbital pad at Starbase for an upcoming static fire of its 6 Raptor engines. Next, going down Highway 4, 11 minutes by car or 1 minute by plane, is the Sanchez site. Compared to the flyover from the 11th, Sanchez has undergone many changes and logistical reshufflings. Here's the first photo of Sanchez taken on May 11th. And here's the second photo of Sanchez taken on May 16th. Starting off from the former United Rentals lot, the area inside the shipping containers has been filled with tooling, equipment, and a new 5-legged stand. All of these objects appear to have been moved from the area around the grounds fabrication building to this makeshift corner of the Sanchez site. Other odds and ends from deluge piping and megabase steel have been moved to this area to make additional room in the surrounding area. Last week, as viewed on the 11th, 2 pairs of these large steel plates were placed under the tarps on top of the 2 6-legged welding jigs and as viewed from this week have been welded together. A special thank you to Christian Schiffer, as we have an interpreted rendering of what these could look like connected to the 18 pipes coming from the larger manifold pipe. Thanks to Chrome Kiwi, as we have not seen underneath the pieces together, we also have another interpretation of the design with shorter pipes coming off the 45-degree angle and attaching to the first plate. Thanks to Ryan House's Space, we have another interpreted view. We can see an exploded view of these elements. As the plate segments connect, they have long channels for running deluge water to cool the top plate. They consist of two main steel plates, one on the top, perforated like a shower head, and the other at the bottom has a second feed line for water. These two rectangular 8 by 18 foot or 2.8 meters by 5.5 meters, viewed from the other side, have a 1 foot or 34.8 centimeter lip to connect to the next element. These are part of the elements that will go underneath the launch ring Elon has referred to as a, quote, massive, super strong steel showerhead pointing up. Moving over slightly, 3 of the pre-assembled corner sections for the second megabay are completed. Viewed on the other side, the 4th corner jig will soon be assembled nearby, allowing the 4th wall to be built. Once completed, these corner sections will be a part of the second level and will be used to increase the speed of assembly of the second megabay like the first megabay before it. Switching over to the rock garden, from left to right sits ships 20, 27, 15, and booster 4, with ship 26 at the top still held by the LR 1750 Buckner crawler crane. This is most likely since the door to the manhole is not rated for pressurization like the regular flight hardware. One of the more exciting details in this image is the bottom right corner at the booster pad. The embeds have been cleaned with water and covers removed, potentially indicating another booster will be stationed here soon. Most likely booster 9, as it awaits construction and refurbishment of the Stage 0 launch ring. Lastly, we move toward the 48,000 square foot inventory tent at the Sanchez site. Here we notice, comparing to the 11th to the 16th, the new shelving being set up and inventory stacked, and an area just to the left being prepped for another future concrete pad to finish this site out. Soon, the area in and around the inventory tent will be flush with stacked and organized inventory ready for the mass production of starships and boosters. Jumping over to the build site, sitting beside Sanchez along Highway 4, here's the first flyover photo of the build site taken on May 11th, and the second comparison photo of the build site taken on the 16th. SpaceX utilizes the following areas and buildings: the Stargate building, High Bay, Mega Bay, Ring Yard, Mid Bay, Tents 1, 2, 3, and 4, Star Factory, Low Bay, the Old White Production Building, and the Grounds Fabrication Building. Moving up to the end of Remedios Avenue lays a freshly graded plot of land recently leased by SpaceX. It is believed it will be used as a staging area for the pre-assembled corner sections once construction begins in earnest on the new Mega Bay. This area recently held numerous culverts that are now utilized next to the right of the new Mega Bay. Speaking of the Mega Bay, we can see the rented Buckner LR 1300 crane raised on Thursday the 18th. And finally, to the side of the new Mega Bay itself, as we can see from the flyover on the 11th and the 16th, the white structural steel, such as the columns and girders for the lower level, were staged and restaged in preparation for the LR 1300 to start work on the base section. As of Friday the 19th, construction of the first level started with the aforementioned LR 1300 lifting up the steel columns. When the LR 11000 comes in, we expect it to be staged in the center of the pad on the cribbing, which are large blocks of wood similar to railroad ties that have been prepared. Being in the center of all the heavy lifting work, it will make the construction process much quicker. Moving over to the front of the Mega Bay, we have another fun decal totaling 2. These are similar to the Falcon 9 landing pads on SpaceX's drone ships and other landing pads. These should be for Super Heavy's landing pads. And before you reach out for the comment section, we mean landing as in staging area of a shipyard. Between these two pads sits a 3-ring methane section for Booster 11, which has already been stacked with another counterpart and its forward dome, making the methane tank section now 9 of 13 rings tall, with one more stack needed to complete the methane section. Moving over to high bay, we can see Ship 29 to the left with its 2-point lift system used for the first time to complete a stack operation of its common dome, with its mid-lock section welded on Friday the 19th, leaving only the aft section left before Ship 29 is fully stacked. Ship 20 is fully stacked and being worked on in the front right corner of high bay. It is still missing its aft flaps, which are changing over with its new style of mounting hardware and a few rows of its tiles. However, it is well along its way to being the next fully tiled starship that would allow for re-entry testing as part of the program's long-term goal of reusability. Moving on over to the ring yard, it is an inventory and staging area for the boosters and starship sections. Rings here are constantly in flux each week as ring sections move in and out or are stored until their usefulness is less than the space they occupy. As the rings often change here, pictures like this one give us a critical view into what and where the rings are as an invaluable tool to the community and groups such as the Ring Watchers, who meticulously track the rings. Swinging back to the other side of the ring yard, we have a view into mid-bay. As shown further back on April 26th, inside the mid-bay is an E-dome. These are about 3.37 feet or 1 meter shorter than the standard variety dome. This one was sleeved in a double ring, and based on its orientation, it was initially believed to be part of a pathfinder for a common dome and downcomer system. However, a couple of weeks ago, around April 30th, the two rings were cut and separated, with the E-dome now being in a single ring. Here is where it gets very unusual. As of the latest flyover on May 16th, it has been painted white with the center section cut out in a decagon or a 10-sided shape, with the hole measuring about 16 feet or 4.9 meters. Some other odd features are the 7 smaller holes and the 3 box-shaped shadows. Just outside, in front of mid-bay, is a flat, solid, segmented black decagon with 10 spoke-like trusses surrounding another decagon hole. The approximate overall size is about 28 feet or 8.8 meters. This is about 1 foot or about 0.2 meters short of a standard 9-meter ring. We have another interpreted rendering of what these two pieces would look like connected with the dome flipped over. What is so interesting about this, you may ask? This is where we go into some speculation. The last time we saw something painted white like this was the white NASA nose cone mock-up used as part of SpaceX's bid for the human landing system, implying that this could be a prototype part for SpaceX's human-rated moon lander as NASA's HLS system for the Artemis program. If this render is viewed as the correct orientation, then the black segmented panels and the area with the 10 spoke-like trusses surrounding it are the floor sections with missing panels. The center opening is potentially part of an access hatch. The E-dome section would be used as structural support and a bulkhead for the airlock. Going a little bit deeper, this image from a public NASA document of the SpaceX HLS system illustrates the airlock concept. Notice the black floor and the white paneled walls. While the shapes are not the same, the walls are approximately the same size as the one seen on the decagon. The thought is a similar system to this will be used for the HLS program, and this could be directly related to the items seen at mid-bay. Moving on to another area, the ground fabrication building and the area around it have typically been used to construct and assemble various types of jigs and mounts and other ground systems, such as tank farm assemblies. Moving up to the Star Factory expansion, we can see the concrete pad poured last week with another segment just above it. The construction order proceeds as footings, electrical conduit, geotextile for soil stabilization, vapor barrier, and rebar with formwork placed before concrete pouring. The second section to get this treatment will be the bottom right-hand corner, where they will finish laying conduits. Then the third section up here at the top left. This week, 2 new footings have appeared here. So far, there are about 19 footings left of this approximate 58 total. The press bit shown here now has a vapor barrier underneath a brand new concrete pad with rebar sticking up vertically in 4 rows. This is an expected construction process for a press pit. These will be for footings that help support a giant machine press. We are still determining what parts they will be making here, but it's suspected that stringers and other common elements could be manufactured here. And that's it for the build site. Next, we'll cover the changes at the launch site at the end of Highway 4, which only takes a nice leisurely 55-minute walk with the booster. There have been many changes since Starship's first integrated test flight on April 20th as SpaceX gears up for a second flight. Starting our tour of the launch site, we'll look at suborbital pads A and B, currently used for static fires of ships. Suborbital Pad B now has Ship 25 sitting on it after it was lifted on Thursday, May 18th by the LR11000 crane. Expect to see Raptor work under Pad B and Ship 25 shortly before its static fire campaign, hopefully later this week. Meanwhile, both the OLM work platform and Raptor work platform known as BART are at Suborbital Pad A. Moving over to the middle of the launch site, we can see the edges of new foundations for additional horizontal cryogenic tanks. These will be the vacuum-insulated cryogenic tanks that Elon called hot dog tanks. They will be a larger style, similar to those shown here, and these may be the replacements for the vertical LOX tanks. Next, let's move east and see what's happening on the Orbital Launch Mount, or OLM. First, we can see the metal doghouse, which previously protected the cryogenic liquid supply lines, has been completely removed, as well as several of the pipes on Tuesday. Meanwhile, several pilings were drilled around the OLM last week, and 110-foot rebar cages, like these seen here. We saw more of the same this week, and several more pilings being augured and caissons placed. Again, another thank you to Chrome Kiwi, who provided this interpretation, which provides another perspective on where these piles are approximately located. These foundations are being constructed for a concrete pile cap in anticipation of the water-cooled steel plates to sit on, discussed earlier. And thanks to Ryan Hansen again, we have an interpretive view of what the plumbing for this system should look like. In a Twitter post on Friday, SpaceX released this video showing an unexpected and welcome view in which we see a Raptor blasting a water-cooled steel plate. At the end, what appeared to be a very successful test, lower water flow conditions were observed. They may be replicating other conditions at Starbase, such as timing for the start and stop of flow, or using high-pressure gas to drive a limited water supply. Another question that remains and is essential for reusability and longevity: how will these water-cooled steel plates fare long-term with repeated use with more thrust from newer generation Raptors, such as V3 or above? Moving on from the OLM, there have been some changes to the integration tower. This is where vehicle stages are integrated onto each other. Let's look at the water deluge system. Over the past week, additional water supply pipework has been delivered to the launch site. Workers have been assembling them together. The black high-pressure gas cylinders next to the suborbital launch site were moved here next to the white water tanks. These cylinders were racked and stacked vertically behind the 4 horizontal water tanks. They should provide the moving force utilizing high-pressure nitrogen gas at around 300 bar or 4,300 psi, pushing the water through a manifold connected to the top of the 4 white water tanks. The water will exit downward into the large gray pipe and go further through into another manifold that should be located here, like the one missing from the Sanchez site. It will be used for flow regulation to prevent water hammer effects and will also be used for staging into these 2 pipes, one for pre-liftoff and the other for post-liftoff. This week, these 2 pipes received formwork for concrete, again to reduce that nasty water hammer effect. Phew. That's it for me. Thank you for joining me for episode 2 of RGV Aerial Photography Starbase Flyover Report. I hope you enjoyed all the content in this video. If you enjoyed this week's video, select the thumbs up button to like. Don't forget to click the subscribe for even more Starbase content. Thanks again for joining me. This is Thomas, over and out.